On an autumn morning in the year 79, a mountain in southern Italy opened. Within 18 hours, a Roman city of 12,000 people was gone. Not damaged, not abandoned, buried under 20 feet of ash and stone. The streets stayed exactly where they were. The bread stayed in the ovens. The election notices stayed on the walls, advertising a vote that would never happen. Pompeii was not destroyed. Pompeii was sealed. And because it was sealed, we know more about this one ordinary town than about almost any other place in the ancient world. So this is not a video about how Pompeii died. This is what Pompeii looked like on the morning before. Everything you're about to see has been rebuilt from evidence. From the excavated street plans, from the surviving walls, which in places still stand at their original height, from paint that survived because it was buried before sunlight could fade it, from 11,000 pieces of graffiti scratched into the plaster by people who had no idea they were leaving a record. We know where the bakeries were. We know what the bars sold and what they charged. We know which houses had running water, which direction the traffic moved, and whose name was painted on the wall outside the door. So walk in through the Marine Gate on an ordinary morning in October and look around. This is Pompeii, 24 hours before. Start with the mountain, because everyone here does. Vesuvius stands about 6 miles to the northwest. In the year 79, it is taller than it is today, and it is green almost to the summit. Vines grow on the lower slopes in long terraced rows. The wine from those slopes is good, and it is cheap, and it is sold in bars all around the bay. Nobody in Pompeii calls it a volcano. There is no reason to. The last major eruption was roughly 1,700 years earlier, before the city existed, before Rome existed. There is no living memory of it. There is no warning attached to it. A century before this, the gladiator Spartacus hid an army inside its crater, and nobody thought that was strange. To the people farming it, Vesuvius is simply the best soil in Italy. And that soil is why this town is rich. Pompeii sits on a low ridge above the mouth of the Sarno River, close to the sea. It is not a capital city. It is not a place that historians write about. It is a working town on an extremely wealthy coastline, and the coastline is the whole point. In the first century, the Bay of Naples is where Roman money goes to relax. Emperors keep villas here. Senators keep villas here. Around the curve of the bay, there are resort towns, a naval base, and hillsides covered in private estates. Pompeii supplies all of it. Wine, oil, wool, and fish sauce move out through its port. Money moves back in. The city walls run for about 2 miles and enclose roughly 160 acres. That is around a quarter of a square mile. Small enough to cross on foot in 20 minutes. Dense enough that somewhere between 10 and 20,000 people live inside it, with most estimates landing near 12. There are 7 gates. Come in through the one on the southwest side, the Marine Gate, and the first thing you notice is the climb. The street ramps upward steeply, paved in dark volcanic stone and worn into grooves by 2 centuries of cartwheels. At the top of that climb, the street opens out, and you're standing in the Forum. The Forum is a long rectangle of open paving, closed to wheeled traffic, surrounded on 3 sides by a covered colonnade. At the northern end, raised on a platform, stands the Temple of Jupiter. Directly behind it, framed between the columns, is the mountain. And in October 79, a great deal of this is a building site. 17 years earlier, in February of the year 62, an earthquake hit the bay. It was severe. Roofs came down. The aqueduct broke. A carved relief found in a banker's house in the city shows the temple tilting sideways and a pair of horses bolting. Pompeii has been rebuilding ever since, and it is still not finished. Scaffolding stands against public buildings. Some temples are half repaired. Some houses have been bought cheaply, knocked through, and turned into workshops by people who could not have afforded that address a generation earlier. Researchers now think the shaking never entirely stopped. Smaller tremors continued for years afterwards. The people of Pompeii had simply learned to live with them. That is the detail worth holding on to. The warning lasted 17 years. It just did not look like a warning. Step out of the Forum onto the Via dell'Abbondanza, and the city changes character immediately. This is the main commercial street. running east across the entire town. It is narrow, about 15 feet from curb to curb, and it is loud. The road surface is black basalt, cut into irregular polygons and fitted tight. Down the center of many streets, you can see two parallel grooves worn into the stone, roughly 4.5 feet apart, cut by cart axles over 200 years. Raised pavements run along both sides about 1.5 feet above the road, because the road is also the drain. Water, waste, and runoff all move down the street. That is why the pavements are high, and that is why there are stepping stones. The stepping stones are the detail people remember. Blocks of stone set across the road at crossing points, level with the pavement, space so a person can step across without touching the surface. But look at the gaps between them. They're sized for cartwheels, which means that by counting the stones at a crossing, you can work out what kind of traffic that street was built to carry. One stone, and only the narrowest carts get through. 3, and it is a main route. Archaeologists have mapped the wear patterns on the curbstones and the ruts, and the pattern reveals something genuinely unexpected. Pompeii had a one-way system. Traffic on certain streets moved in a single direction, enforced by curb design and block junctions. A town of 12,000 people had already invented traffic management. Now, count the doorways. Along this street, and every street like it, the ground floor is shops. Open-fronted, closed at night with wooden shutters that slid into grooves you can still see cut into the thresholds. Close to 100 of them are thermopolia, bars. A thermopolium is a masonry counter facing directly onto the street, faced in offcuts of colored marble, with deep clay jars set into the top of it. The jars held food, hot, cheap, and sold to the street. There are at least 31 bakeries inside the walls. Every one of them has the same layout. A set of hourglass-shaped lava millstones, turned by donkeys or by slaves. A kneading room, and a domed wood-fired oven that looks almost exactly like a modern pizza oven, because that is precisely what it became. When one of those ovens was opened in the 19th century, the loaves were still inside. Carboni's black, but structurally intact. Round and scored into 8 segments, the way bread is still divided in that part of Italy today. Prices survive too, painted and scratched onto the walls. A cup of ordinary wine, 1s. Better wine too. Falernian, the expensive stuff, 4. A loaf of bread, 2 asses. A labor might earn somewhere between 8 and 16 asses in a day, which tells you something useful. Eating out in Pompeii was not a luxury. Most homes had no kitchen at all. Cooking indoors, in a city of shared walls and open flame, was a genuine fire risk. So people ate standing at the counter on the way to somewhere else. The Roman street food economy was not a novelty. It was the default. Then there is the water. And this is where Pompeii stops feeling ancient. An aqueduct brings water into the city at its highest point into a distribution tank called the Castellum Aquae. From there, it divides into 3 separate lead pipe networks. One for the public fountains, one for the public baths, one for private houses that pay for a connection. There are around 40 public fountains. They are positioned so that nobody in the city has to walk more than about 80 yards to reach one. They run continuously. There are no taps. The overflow washes down the street, which is also conveniently how the street gets cleaned. There are 3 large public bath complexes. The Stabian baths have separate men's and women's sections. Changing rooms with numbered niches for clothes, a cold plunge pool, a warm room, and a hot room heated by a hollow floor with hot air circulating underneath it. Wealthy houses have their own supply. Some have fountains running in the garden continuously, purely because they can. In a town this size, in this century, that is remarkable. And it is the direct result of the town's other great advantage, money, which brings us to the houses. From the street, a Pompeian townhouse gives you almost nothing. A blank wall, a doorway, sometimes a name painted beside it. No windows at street level at all. Step through, and the design does something deliberate. A short, dark, deliberately compressed corridor opens into the atrium. A high room with a square opening cut in the roof, and a shallow basin set into the floor beneath it to catch the rain. Light falls through that opening in a solid column. and beyond it, framed dead center, is the garden. The entire house is arranged so that a visitor standing at the front door looks straight through the building to greenery at the far end. It is a design sightline. It is showing off, and it is 2,000 years old. The largest of these is the House of the Faun, which covers around 32,000 square feet, an entire city block, larger than most royal residences anywhere in Europe for the next 1,000 years. Set into its floor was a mosaic of Alexander the Great in battle, assembled from roughly 1.5 million individual tiles. And the walls are painted, floor to ceiling, in almost every house, not only the wealthy ones. Deep red, black, ochre yellow, architectural fantasies, garden scenes, mythological panels. We know the exact colors because they were buried before sunlight could reach them. And on the outside walls, over 11,000 pieces of graffiti. Election slogans, prices, insults, declarations of love. A line from Virgil's Aeneid, copied out by somebody practicing their handwriting. And on one wall this, I am amazed, wall, that you have not collapsed since you hold up the tedious scribblings of so many writers. At the far southeastern corner of the city stands the Amphitheatre. It was built around 70 years before the birth of Christ, which makes it the oldest surviving stone amphitheater anywhere in the Roman world. It predates the Colosseum by nearly a century and a half. It seats about 20,000 people. That is more people than live in the town. In the year 59, a fight broke out in that arena between Pompeians and visitors from the neighboring town of Nuceria. It escalated into a full riot. People were killed. The Roman Senate investigated and banned Pompeii from holding games for 10 years. And somebody in Pompeii thought the riot was such a good day out that they painted a picture of it on the wall of their house. That painting survives. None of this tells you who is actually here. But in Pompeii, unusually, we can put names to some of them. Start with two brothers, Aulus Vettius Restitutus and Aulus Vettius Conviva. Both were freedmen, born into slavery and legally released. They made their money in trade, and they spent it on a house in the north of the city, which they decorated with some of the most ambitious painting in Pompeii. The entrance hall carries a frieze of cupids running businesses, making perfume, working gold, selling wine. It is not subtle. It is a house built by men who had themselves been property, announcing to every visitor that they now owned property instead. Roman society permitted that movement. It also never entirely let them forget where they had started. Then there is Julia Felix. She owned a large estate on the eastern side of town. After the earthquake, she made a decision that tells you precisely how this city worked. She converted part of her property into a commercial letting, and she advertised it. On the outside wall, in paint, that notice survives. It offers an elegant bath suite, shop units with rooms above them, and apartments. Available on a 5-year lease. It even specifies the class of tenant she is looking for. Julia Felix was a woman running a property business in the 1st century and doing it well enough to advertise on her own wall. Then there is Aulus Umbricius Scorus, whose fortune came from fish. Garum was fermented fish sauce, and Romans put it on very nearly everything. Scorus manufactured it, and his brand traveled. Jars stamped with his name have been found as far away as southern France. Estimates suggest his workshops supplied something close to a third of the entire region's output. In the entrance to his house, he had a mosaic laid into the floor showing 4 garum jars, each one labeled with his own product. Visitors walked across his advertising to get in the door. And then there's everyone whose name we do not have. The elections are the best evidence for them. Pompeii's walls carry roughly 2,800 surviving election notices, painted in red and black by professional sign writers, often overnight. Candidates are endorsed by name, and so, crucially, are the people doing the endorsing. The muleteers back a candidate. The fruit sellers back a candidate. The bakers, the fishermen, the goldsmiths, the dyers. One notice is endorsed by the man who sleeps in the shop next door. Another appears to be a joke, backing a candidate on behalf of the town's petty thieves. These are ordinary working people organized by trade, taking part in local politics, and putting their names on a wall to prove it. The most recent of those notices campaigned for offices that would be filled the following spring. Nobody painted over them. There was no reason to. There was time. So, the autumn of 79. The traditional date for what happens next is the 24th of August. And that date rests on a single source. 2 letters, written by a man named Pliny the Younger to the historian Tacitus, roughly 25 years after the event. The physical evidence disagrees with him. The bodies were found in autumn clothing. Braziers were out and in use for heat. The food remains include autumn fruit, pomegranates, walnuts, chestnuts. Wine jars in the surrounding fields had already been sealed, which happens only after the October harvest. And in 2018, excavators found a line of charcoal scrawled on a wall in a house that was being renovated. It is a date, the 16th day before the calends of November, the 17th of October. Charcoal does not survive on plaster. It smudges away within weeks. For that line to still be legible, the room must have been buried very shortly after somebody wrote it. The current best estimate for the eruption is the 24th of October. It begins around midday. A column of gas and pulverized rock is forced out of the mountain and rises, not as a cloud, but as a vertical pillar, roughly 20 miles high. It flattens at the top. Pliny, watching from across the bay, describes it as looking like an umbrella pine. Then the pumice starts to fall. It is light. Most of it will float in water. At first, it is not lethal. It simply accumulates. An inch, then a foot, then more, hour after hour, for something like 18 hours. And all of it is landing on the roofs. That is what kills the first group of people. Not fire. Roof collapse. Tiled roofs across the city give way under the accumulated weight of stone, and they come down on the people sheltering underneath. Some leave early and survive. The roads south and east stay passable for hours, and the great majority of the population does get out. That deserves saying clearly because it is usually left out. But some stay. They wait for it to stop. They shelter in cellars and back rooms with the doors closed. And they're still there when the second phase begins. Early the following morning, the column can no longer support its own weight. It collapses. What comes down the mountain instead is a pyroclastic surge, a ground-hugging cloud of gas and ash moving at highway speed at somewhere between 400 and 600 degrees Fahrenheit. The first surges stop short of the city walls. The fourth does not. It takes a few minutes to cross the city. Everyone still inside dies in roughly the time it takes to draw a single breath. The heat is high enough that death is effectively instantaneous. Then the ash keeps falling. By the time it stops, Pompeii is under between 13 and 20 feet of volcanic material. And here is the part that matters. The city is not knocked down. It is packed. The ash fills the rooms and presses against the walls from both sides at once, holding them upright. That is why those walls are still standing today. The thing that killed the town is the only reason it survived. Around 1,150 bodies have been recovered inside the walls. The true figure is probably closer to 2,000, out of a population of perhaps 12. We can see some of them because of a technique invented in 1863 by an archaeologist named Giuseppe Fiorelli. He worked out that the hollow voids in the hardened ash were the shapes of bodies that had long since decayed away. So when his teams found a cavity, they pumped it full of liquid plaster, let it set, and chipped the ash off. What comes out is not a skeleton. It is a person in the position they were in at the moment the surge arrived. Folds of clothing, facial expressions, a dog still on its chain. In one garden near the eastern edge of the city, 13 people who had almost reached the gate. Pompeii sat under the ash for 1,669 years. Systematic excavation began in 1748. Roughly a third of the city is still buried, and is being left that way deliberately. Everything uncovered begins to decay the moment it meets the air. So current policy is to conserve what is already exposed rather than open new ground, which means there's a part of Pompeii that nobody alive has ever seen. It is being saved for people with better tools than ours. The election notices are still on the walls. The stepping stones are still in the road, still worn. And the date on that charcoal wall still reads October. If you want to see another city rebuilt, Babylon is next. Is on screen now.